Where are we now? So let's see. How many things have we seen? Okay, so harvester, update payload information, hash. Let's see now if we jump all the way over. Nope, still picking up the wrong one. So let's go ahead and try to do Wix bundle symbol and jump me into the data. Yeah, so I can do it manually without having the compiler do it for me. All right, so let's see. Where are we going next? So we were looking at hash in here. Wait. I thought there was hash in here. Did I get the wrong one? Wix bundle payload symbol hash. No? Yes. Hash. Oh, spelling. Do not do case sensitive. All right, let's go. 4. There we go. So there's the symbol being stored. Now, all the symbols are stored as properties. So we it stores properties and we store them in enum. So it's a generic structure behind the scenes with these nice friendly wrappers around the top of them. All right, so hash. All right, cool. So that's all those things together. Let's see. Okay. Where are we at? Okay, so now we have the hash. And we have the payload harvester here. So I need to add a new field to the payload, I think. All right, so we've been through these two things. Now let's go ahead and open up the burn code that's already reading this. So let's go find, and it doesn't open the burn code. It doesn't show you that. Okay. Visual Studio does not share a lot of its windows it creates, it looks like. All right, I'm gonna just bring open the burn engine code and look at the place that loads the manifest information. And we're gonna put the burn code over here on the right. So let's see, we're looking for the, let's see what we're looking for. Signature, maybe? Is that what it's gonna be called? Let's look for hash real quick. Nope, again, case sensitivity. Don't want case sensitivity on. Nothing here? All right, parse from XML. User searches burn experience payloads parse from XML. Burn payloads parse from XML. Oh, not that one. All right, parse payloads from XML. Oh, right. That's going to be in the payloads. Parse payloads. There we go. There's the hash. Packaging contains layout, download file size, certificates, hash. There's the hash. All right. And verification. So let's look at this. How's verification? None. Payload verification. Where is this getting set? Burn payload verification is this. Yep, none. Authenticode, hash, update bundle. All right, so we need to set from the binder both the Authenticode and the hash. All right, the Authenticode, or sorry, the verification is none. Right, so that's going to be busted. You have to set that. And verification hash. The file size is required when validating by hash. Okay. There it is. Certificate root thumbprint. That is it. So we store the thumbprint of the certificate. And let's see here. Yep. The certificate root public key identifier. Okay. And the thumbprint. And when we do that, where is the verification getting set? There it is. If we find the certificate public key identifier, then we will switch the verification mode in the payloads to Authenticode. And that totally makes sense. And now I'm remembering that I'm going to need the X509 magic code to come up, which means I'm going to need some code that I do not remember off the top of my head. So I'm going to slam over here and see if I can real quick grab some code. Man, I have to think of Wix 3 case now and where things are laid out in that. I haven't worked in this in deep for a while. Let's see, X509. There we go. And it was in the old payload info row class, which is very much like the payload symbol. Let's see, certificate. There we go. Yep. All right. Okay, so I don't have a good way to, oh yeah, I do. I can just open this file like this. Here we go. Let's just open. And payload info row. All right, so here's this code is from v3, this payload info row. I'm gonna keep all this stuff that we're not gonna be modifying on the right that we're gonna use to reference, figure out where things go. Payload info row, here's the X509 certificate. So yes, so if not suppress signature validation, then try to get the certificate from the file's full path. All right, great. And when we do that, then we get the public key identifier from here. Oh, and we call down into the native code to get that. I may have bit off a whole lot today. All right, because I bet a lot of this native code we didn't bring over into v4 either. I'm really looking at having to go back into the history and try to find the Authenticode change and then bring it back. But we'll see. Let's see how far we go here. So that then wants to get the hash to public key info, and that'll be in winterop from the old code. Okay, and then, yeah, okay, hex encoded, and then we also get the thumbprint from that. So it's a matter of looking at this hash public key info. So let's go ahead and look at that code, which is going to be native code. So I'll open that one. Yeah, and it's right there. Yeah, and it's just calling a code down, straight down into Win32 to give us something that we weren't getting out of the certificate wrapper around the X509 certificate. At least not in the form that matched back then. Now, X509 certificate handling has improved with .NET Framework or .NET Core, but we're also running .NET Framework, so I don't know. We're probably going to still need to keep this hash public key info matching. Let's see here, public key identifier size. Right, so get that, get the hash size +1. Yeah, so we're locked at 128. That's interesting. Public key identifier hash size. We don't use that. Oh yeah, we do. There it is. +1. +1 times 2. That, okay. So we just have enough space then to hex encode the identifier, which then when we look at the payload here, yeah, Steralic hex decode. So we get the hex out when we set the certificate public key identifier. All right, so now we've tied all that back. The payload harvester is going to need to be able to get the certificate information, but only if we want it to be signed, or sorry, Authenticode verified. And that would only be true if the symbol says it's true, which means on the Wix bundle payload symbol, we need to store that fact, whether it's going to be Authenticode signed. So see how we started the compiler and we're now going down. Now we're working our way back up from the bottom up to then say, yes, I want this to be Authenticode signed. And I was looking for, sometimes we leave an attributes field on a symbol because they can be really helpful when you find out you need one. Otherwise, we have to change the intermediate definition, which then has backwards compatibility implications of what can be read. So it doesn't look like we have a place to squirrel this away as part of the symbols pushing all this down and through. So the debate here then is, if we can add it here. We can add all this here. The other thing I'm wondering is if we have some features that are only in heat. Sean's in the chat, isn't he? Yeah, Sean's in the chat. We have some features that are only in heat. I wonder if this is something that we should leave for remote payloads. So remote payloads are payloads where you don't have them locally. They're remote. They're somewhere else. And as you can see, we need hashes and all the information about these particular files. So remote payload is a way of saying, look, I don't have this file when I'm building my bundle. It's off somewhere else, like maybe it's a .NET Framework and you don't have it local. Then we can use the heat tool to harvest the necessary information out of the file and put it into the put it straight into the payload, into the information in your authoring. So you can say, look, I don't want you to go off and refer this file. I just want to harvest it, check that file in, and then I can always know that, hey, I've essentially pre-digested that information, as opposed to every build updating information. Where if you're including an MSI that you've built into a bundle, naturally you're not going to want to store that information, because next time you build MSI, it's not going to match. But in the case of signature verification, since it's not the one that we recommend and you wouldn't have the file normally, maybe we don't expose it through the language all the way down, and so that you can set it. So the change there is, if we did that, all this code here that does the certificate happening would move over into the heat code instead of being in the normal pipeline. So you wouldn't be able to say, hey, I'm going to chain this file, this package in, and say on it alone, enable the signature verification. But don't we want it for the .NET packages? And you're thinking we're going to have to include those? People are going to include those directly in the things? For the .NET packages, I thought we were going to they were another example of remote payloads. I'm not sure I'm following there, Sean. If I'm missing something. Sean's at a disadvantage. He has to type while I get to babble on here. Let's see. So, yeah. Well, let's see. So, if we were to put it in here. Oh, yeah. No, for remote payloads, we definitely have to add the hash. But I was thinking, for normal payloads, do we want to enable the signature validation, or is it only a remote payload feature? And I'm trying to go, I just have to, I'm hesitant to only put it as a heat feature in case it's needed, but this is a design balance point that, you can we have to decide. Is this a language feature that we want to expose to everybody all the time as a, hey, you can mark this package and have it validated through Authenticode signatures, even though generally you don't want to do that? If you have the file and it's right with your bundle, then chances are you're not, it's not remote. It's not going to change on you because you're carrying it with you. So it's right there in your build process. So yeah, get the hash. The hash is better than the Authenticode signature. It doesn't fail except when it's supposed to. Thanks, Bob. You guys are both validating my thought process here. So then you go through, and if you continue on, then you're like, all right, so we don't really think you want to do this on most of the packages that are in your chain normally, but there are certainly some cases that you want to, like the .NET Framework, which of course isn't yours except for the .NET Framework themselves. And in that case, it's remote. So you would use the remote feature, which is you would use heat to generate the information for you essentially you pre-capture it and you hold on to it, and then it doesn't happen every build. You just check that in because, well, the .NET framework doesn't change, in air quotes. You can't see that, but in air quotes, it doesn't change, but it's on because it's on their servers. You just have to say, hey, yeah, that's there. Here's the Authenticode signature to that. Now, when I install, I didn't have to download that file, have it as part of my build process, get all the information, and go forward because you digest that once in heat. And actually what happens is we do that one time. We do that one time for pretty much everybody and ship it in the .NET framework extension. It has all this stuff pre-digested for you. So it really comes down to then, that's great. We will have this scenario available for remote payloads, essentially saying that this is a remote payload feature as opposed to any given package can be marked with the enable Authenticode signatures. And now the more I think about it, the more I'm like, yeah, you really don't want to, for something that's inside your bundle, we don't want to encourage people to enable this. We had this problem before where people are like, oh, well, signature verification, that's a good thing. I should enable that. When the answer is no, actually, that is more likely to fail than the hash check. So you don't want to enable it. And so maybe this is a good way to say, yeah, if you want to enable the hash or Authenticode signature checks, you need to use the remote payload mechanism instead of using the instead of just listing the bundle in your package and marking it with enable signature verification, which was, I think that was the old name, which actually was suppressed signature verification before that because we were trying to do that one by default. Debate. I think the correct answer is to table it and bring this all up when we're sitting together and we can talk about this, which means I should probably bring this issue back up for triage and think about it for a little bit, not while I'm trying to talk out loud, which is an interesting experience, trying to talk out loud and think at the same time. Yeah, Sean, that right, and you exactly. It would prevent people from doing it for payloads that don't support remote payload like MSI package, which is exactly right. It would pick up all those things. Yeah, the more I think about it, the more I think it's like, yeah, it should really just be a remote payload feature. All right, so like all good things in the world, no good plan survives contact with the enemy. So I think we're going to abort that plan, but we're not going to give up. We still got, 34 minutes, I think, if I'm counting correctly. Yeah, 35 minutes, something like that. So we're going to freeze this. And you know what? We're going to go back to the same old, which is that, hey, you know what? We have a lot of doc that we still have to improve. So so given everything else, let's go ahead and go back to the code. I'm trying to open the file. Oh, you can see the mouse cursor floating. All right, so here I have the file open dialog right here, but you can't see it. For some reason, Visual Studio decides that that's not part of the windows that I'm sharing, even though I said share the whole Visual Studio window. I wonder what that's like, if it's a WPF thing or something else. All right, so I'm gonna bring open the Wix XSD. I don't want it. I never want this designer. I need to update it. Get rid of that designer. Okay. So we're going back to that. And we're going to go ahead and leave off the everything else. Okay, we'll come back. And we're going to pick another element. So before we finish here, we need to go back to the browser. Let's see. I've lost my browse windows here. Okay, browser. This is the issue. Bring back option to verify payload things. So one of the important things we have to do is tag it. Where are my labels? Thank you. Labels with triage. And what this will do is it'll show back up on our radar this next week. Next week? Yeah, so no meeting tomorrow, meeting next week. So meeting next week, next Thursday, 9:30 a.m. PST. We will bring this back up. And I want to leave a quick note in here because if I don't, I will forget. Although given how much time I just spent sitting here, maybe I would remember, and it's only a week away. But we should consider making Authenticode verification only available to remote payloads. That would expose it at the, well, that is the minimal exposure required and removes the chance that someone uses signature verification when hashing is superior. Accidentally, what is it? Essentially thinks that they're doing the right thing even though the hashing. All right, so I'm gonna leave that comment. I'm gonna make sure it's marked for triage, so that'll show up this next week, and we will sit and stare with it when all three of us have all of our heads together and come back to it. So that means for now, we're gonna jump back to Visual Studio, and instead, we're just gonna pick up another element. So, I mean, we're here, let's go ahead and get that done. And oh gosh, there's so many to pick from. All right, let's continue with the package element. I think I can jump to. Oh yes, that's very nice. All right. Boy, I didn't have a one on my list exactly. That was the next to change. Well, I guess we can just start. Let's see, compliance component. All right, component. Oh, no. I know which one we're gonna do. The one that I'd hoped we could get to last week that we didn't get to. The new standard directory work. All right, so let's close payload harvester. Let's close these things related to the backend and the compiler. That's not the part of the compiler we care about. We probably do care about that one. All right, let's go find parse directory element. Yeah, that one. Well, I want the actual code. All right, parse directory element. Okay, so one of the things that we did probably wrong in Wix 3 a long time ago is that we made the standard directories the same for all, we made the standard directories at the same level as every other directory. In other words, how do you use program files folder, which is arguably the most important or one of the most used, I don't know if most important is probably not fair, but maybe one of the most used directory roots in all the Windows installer, aka program files, through x86 on a 64-bit machine. If you want to use that, you say directory ID equals program files folder, and then you give it a name of something. Now that name is ignored, and the parent of the program files folder in the directory tree is ignored because the Windows installer essentially sees that very special name, program files folder, and goes, oh, I know what you meant. You meant, on a Windows machine typically, C:\, program files folder x86. Ta-da, and everything. It is all worked for you. But it's was surprising, not highly discoverable that, oh, wait, how did I know to put program files folder there? There's nothing that could guide you in that direction to say, hey, if you want to use program files folder, you put it as the ID. And by the way, your name is irrelevant. The name attribute that you use is irrelevant at that point because the Windows installer is just going to ignore it and give you the right one. Same for target dir, common files folder, desktop folder, all those are the same. And it always bugged me in Wix 3, but it's a huge breaking change to do that. So what did we want to do instead? It's like, well, let's go out and create a specialized element for defining these directories. And then the debate was, should we create a specialized element for each directory? Should we create a program files folder element? And that would be similar to what we did for all the actions, where there is a install files action that you can come before or after. There's the write registry keys action, register product action, which we saw earlier in the stream when I renamed it incorrectly. All those different things were available. Should we create separate elements And the problem with that is that, well, you get lots of these tiny little elements all over. And again, they're not terribly discoverable as individual names because they're just floating around out there. And you have to know that register product is an element and you can't just stick it anywhere. Now with the or is a action and you can't just stick it anywhere. Now in the case of actions, it's okay because they're all rooted in a sequence. Like here, they're all rooted in install UI sequence or install execute sequence and so on and so forth. In fact, if we look at these guys, we will see they have tremendously long lists of all the actions that you can have inside those things. And because each one of these is a separate element. Again, because we can isolate these to here, it's all right. But directories, because they're the root of structure, end up being parented fairly loosely. For example, you can just stick them in a fragment and they can show up, which is really nice because you're like, I wanted to define a directory here, then put a bunch of stuff in it. They should be able to show up anywhere, which means that that very long list of elements is going to show up in your IntelliSense all kinds of places. So it meant that it maybe wasn't a great option for that. And honestly, maybe it wasn't a great option for the actions either, but you don't use the actions very much. So essentially we're just carrying a long list of elements for something you don't use very often. So it's probably not worth changing that. But for directories, we definitely got to get that right. And in the case of directories, we decided instead to go with a single element that specifies how all of your, that allows you to say, I want to use a standard directory, which is great. Anyone guess what the element name is? Yeah, standard directory. Now, standard directory element, no, not that one. Yeah, there it is, the name in the base. I want parse standard directory element. There we go, parse standard directory element. And as you can see, this has 3 parents that it can show up under, one under package, one underneath module, and probably the next one is under fragment. If we go up to here, yeah, parse fragment element, see right there. So standard directories can be top level things. There's one single one of them, and then we validate that the ID that you put on the standard directory element ID is a standard directory, and we have all those burned into the Wix toolset. So you can say, yes, this is a well-known Windows installer standard directory. Otherwise, it's an invalid value. So in fact, let's go ahead and bring that whole list up. Standard directories here, which is this, which then gets that standard properties. Look at all those properties Windows installer provides you. Look at all those actions that the Windows installer provides you and all their sequences. Down at the bottom is, yeah, here's our directory symbol. Okay. Where is the standard directories? Oh, is made from these symbols. All right, great. Right, so here are all those directory symbols that go with the standard directory identifier. So we'll go through here and make sure that it's one of these IDs over here. Notice you still have to give a name for standard directories. That's another one of the weird things. Is one of the weird things that is true about Wix 3. You have to say directory ID equals program files folder, and then you still have to give it a name. Technically speaking, name is defaulted in Wix to a dot. So if you don't specify it, it'll essentially be used the same as the parent directory, which can have implications if you're in Targeter. So you should generally give it a name. So in this case, you can see that for program files folder, and where's program files folder? Program files folder, we use the short name pfiles, and we also use an 8.3 name, in this case just 8, because if you use a longer name, then it will end up having to get hashed. So we generate a short name for you, so you can have the long name and a short name, which just ends up taking more space in your MSI. So let's not do that. Let's do optimal things here, which is what we do here, and give you the short name for the program files. So program file 64, and then we'll talk about this bad boy some other time, but that's a program file 6432 folder that switches based off of which architecture you're building your package for, which is a new thing in Wix 4 as well, and it uses dot. We can maybe break that down some other time. Anyway, so here's our list of standard directories, and I'm going to come back for this list at some point, which means I don't want to lose that list, and then I don't need this name. So if we look at our standard directory element, then As we can see, it allows components, directories, and merges, right? So you can, underneath a standard directory, you can put components in a standard directory, you can put other directories in your standard directory, and then you can also put merge elements, which essentially says when you merge this module in, hook it underneath this its contents underneath this directory, which ends up working out pretty well. All right, so standard directory, we're going to go and define it. And as we said, standard directory shows up under the fragment. Oh, that's kind of cool. Can you see that? No, you can't see that. All right. This tiny little 3 references pops up a window and you can't see that. I'm gonna have to see if there's a setting in OBS that will let you see those windows that pop up over the top. So anyway, it shows up at 3 places. So let's go over to our XSD now. And we have to create this element. So I want to go down to the directory element. And honestly, it's gonna be a lot like this guy. I think. Well, it only has ID on it. No, it's not me as much like that guy as I thought it would be. All right. So let's go ahead and grab. We're just going to grab all directory for a second, and we'll delete most of it. Or maybe director ref. Ooh, no, director ref. Yes, director ref is pretty much perfect. There we go. That's what we want. Except for disk ID. Yeah, for some things. All right, much better. Okay, so I'm going to copy directory ref as our starting point for the shape of the XSD. Now the question is, do I try to alphabetize this thing? This Wix XSD is not alphabetized already. Or do we just stick it here to be more local to the current content? I don't know if I want to try to start alphabetizing now. That sounds kind of scary. Oh, window key, that's what I'm missing. Window V does not paste code. All right, so let's change this to standard directory. See also directory, how to add a file. We will need to update that at some point. Let's leave that in there for now, that might be useful. All right, and the children of standard directory are still component, directory, and merge. That's great. It does have extensibility points. Yes. Yep. The parse extension elements. There we go. It has an ID. Disk IDs and such like that. Okay, so now, where am I at with the attribute? Access. Oh, there's the innate attribute. All right, that's extensibility, which I think we do still have here too. Yeah, parse extension attributes. All right, so we do allow that. Schema register with, yep, all right, and schema can register additional types. All right, the identifier of the standard directory to include in the package. So now, one other interesting thing about Wix 4, and you can click the arrow button to open it as a window. That'll probably be visible. Oh, yes, right. Okay. Thank you, Bob. That's a good idea. All right. Anyway, the identifier is standard directory. Identifier the standard directory to include in the package. What was I saying? Oh, yes. Technically speaking, you do not have to include standard directories if you just want to create a reference to them. The Wix toolset will automatically add standard directories anytime that it thinks it needs to. So that's another really nice thing. If you're just, if you just want to say, hey, I want to use this thing, you don't have to go off and include you don't have to create directory program files folder anymore if you're just going to use it or whatever. It's less useful for program files folder because usually you want to create a directory tree underneath that. But more useful for the one-off directories like a desktop folder. You're like, yeah, put this shortcut in desktop folder. In the past, you had to go then back to your directory tree, or you could do it right there, wherever you want to put your directories, and explicitly put in a directory for desktop folder, which is just annoying. Now it'll do it for you, which is kind of nice. All right, so let's see. Where are we at? ID, others here, component directory. Okay, standard directory, and I actually don't want this to be a string. I want this to be an enum. I think I want to do this. I'm gonna call it standard directory union. All right, let's see. Directories creates I'm gonna say references a standard Windows installer directory. such as the all familiar program files folder. All right. And that attribute's complaining at me because standard directory union is not a type, which is true. We're going to go make that type next. The identifier of the standard directory to include in the package. Yes. Let's go ahead and create that type. Now, all our unions are down here at the bottom. Some of them are long. This one's going to be kind of long because we're going to put all of the directories. And the reason I want to make this a union is that it will, or sorry, a type, is that it will then autocomplete for people, which would be really nice. All right, I was looking for something in here. None of these are in alphabetical order, so whatever. All right, we'll put above yes, no, below. Okay, so this is the yes, no type union. Yep, that's essentially what I want. The same behavior as yes, no type union, but with new names. All right, standard directory goes there. Okay, and then standard directory goes here. We'll, a Windows installer standard directory. Probably should be using the words in the same, but same words as that as the word, but standard directory, it's a standard directory. Standard Windows installer, values of this type. All right, so I'm going to do this. Yes. A Windows installer standard directory. And then in this union, there. So now, so this union essentially says, hey, you can have the Windows standard directory, or you can have a preprocessor variable in there. Either one of those things will satisfy this. And now, I think we just have to create a bunch of these and come over here and look at the standard directory names and make sure we bring them all over. So targetdir is a special one. People hopefully won't be using targetdir. I think there's actually a warning about using it. So while I'm copying this, the other thing about standard directories in the directory element, which is where a lot of people will probably have had well, in V3, people will be used to being like, oh, I need to use program files folder, I use a directory, at least those that are familiar with the WIS tool set. You'll now get a warning telling you, hey, stop using the directory element for your standard directories. You don't do that anymore. You use standard directory. If you use the convert tool, it should update that for you. So no worries on that front. But the goal is that it becomes a lot cleaner to define your root of your tree. You're just like, yeah, here's program files folder, boom. It also makes it easier. You can just say standard directory programs files folder, create a tree, and you can say standard directory or standard directory, and then create a whole another tree under it again. And I think that will just give you what you want, a whole bunch of, make it very easy to do your authoring. You're like, this is clearly the start of program files folder, where is in a standard directory. I really hope it cleans up a lot of confusion that we've had in the past about this. It certainly wasn't one of the best design decisions we made early, but it was also very, very early, and it was so fundamental to the world of Wix that it was also going to be one of the bigger ones to change. And in Wix 3, we didn't get to it, so it lived on. Wow, look at that. I tabbed that enumerations just perfectly. Isn't that's cool. Okay, so now that we have the standard directory union, ooh, can I have the simple type and a complex type name the same thing? I've never tried doing that. Let's not do that. Is yes, no, yes, no type? Yeah, I'm going to put type on it. All right, I'm going to put type, standard directory, type. There we go. And you got to update you to be type. Okay. Back up to the top. And this is not a type anymore. Yay, standard directory user. And the ID is required, so that's correct. And then we can process all these other attributes. That's great. Great. All right, cool. Standard directory. now we got to go put this bad boy in the right places. So it goes essentially anywhere that directory goes, just about anywhere that directory goes. And this we're going to keep in alphabetical order. S-T-U. All right, now I've got that. All right, so let's go ahead and see if we find directory. Good. With a quote. There we go. Where are we at now? This is some information, so this must be package. Yeah. Is this it? Now I'm confused. Wait. Element. Okay. I missed the start. Oh, there it is. Module. I did miss the start of it. Standard before substitution. All right. Next one. This is. I missed it again. Configuration, substitution. Yeah, I missed the element. All right. Where is the element? Oh, ignore table. No. Fragment. Good grief, I cannot see the elements. All right. Oh, hey, look. We left this here for us. Did we not do that for the other ones? I guess we didn't. We were just looking at fragment and did that. Okay, so that's the 3 places for standard directory. Oh, my goodness. Did I really just look right past that? Wow. Talk about being blind. All right, standard directory. Okay, this one didn't have it. I really did just look right past that, didn't I? Wow. Okay, so let's go back. That's standard directory. Standard directory. And I think that's everything on that one. Yep, okay, that's all those things. It has an ID, it's in that, it's in 3 places. Let's see if Bob's right. If I pop this out as a window, does it appear? It does appear. That's great. So that's in the fragment element, that's in the module element, and that's in the package element. Boom. All right, that's parse standard directory element, and then we come down, and then it can parse a directory element. And if we look at the directory element, it has all these things on it. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah, by the way, remember here's, defining standard directories. So if this is, we're in the parsing directory element right here. If you specify a standard directory here, then you'll get this deprecated warning doing that. And if you specify target or wrong, then you get that warning. All right, so I think that says everything is correct now. Yeah. All right. That's standard directory. And all right, since we're here, let's take a look at the directory element. We're close to that one. Yeah, okay, here we go. And let's go ahead and fix this guy up while we're here. Fix this guy up while we're here. Fix this guy out. And we'll be able to check out the directory table off of our list. Okay, going back and looking at our attributes. ID, component generation, seed, disk ID, file source, name, short name, yep, short source name, yep, okay. All right, looks good. And then any attributes that you want to have as part of extensions. Okay. All right. Okay, that's good. Now let's go ahead and look at directory ref. Parse directory ref element. ID, disk ID, and file source. That sounds familiar. Directory ref. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and fix this up. I expect this is correct. There's ID. There's disk ID. Not that you really should set that anymore, but you can if you need to be very specific about which disks your content and need to end up on. I don't know anybody that does that. It's more for controlling which cabinet your content gets merged into. All right, so that's standard directory. Yes. Okay. So we finished that one as well. Okay. All right, so that's actually a good thing. I'm gonna over here, go in my notes and add the fact that we got added standard directory. I guess that's all we really did. We just cleaned up the white space on the directory element. All right, so let's go switch over to VS Code. I think we left it off with it in the right place, right? And let's look at our changes. Yep, and we'll start at the top. There we go. All right, so what did I do? This is exactly what I did. I uncommented to do. I didn't actually rewrite this whole element, go through everything. We're adding it everywhere and then realizing that I had a to-do in the right place. That is not at all what I did. I just uncommented the to-do because it was like, boom, done, easy. Parked on the downhill, left it right in the right spot. There. We added standard directory to the module because, well, the to-do wasn't there already. And similar to the package element, in the fragment element, we did this perfectly right too. All right, and then we had to go down and write a whole bunch of stuff about standard directory. Mostly about the extensibility facets of it because the ID is really simple. And this type is going to give you all of your options for that dropdown, as a dropdown, hopefully in Visual Studio. And then, ta-da, look at that. There's all our common directories. That is awesome. One time, all the way around. Boom. And this is something though. Here it is. This is a decent element. I mean, it's not huge. It's not a massive element, but it's a decent sized element. It has one attribute. Actually, I'm going to take that back. This is actually a pretty small element. It has one attribute on it, and it has no children. But here it is in these, I don't know, 829 to 835. So 100, some lines long. And then look how small this line is right here. Tiny little blip in all the things that have to be blips. All right, so that will be a small change. And let's go ahead and add standard directory element documentation. Now, when it's just that, I don't have anything else to say. I'll sometimes put that. Now, I want to say that there was an issue open for this already. I really think there was. Let's go ahead and switch back to our code or browser. Oh, is there a way to mark target or marked as deprecated? Yeah, that may have already been done. We should kind of look at that. We'll take a swing through that in a minute. If we have time. I want to see. I'm confident I saw something. He uses that standard directory element missing. There. Add standard directory element description to the WX schema. I knew there was an issue, and it's assigned to me. That's why we're working on this kind of stuff. I just took all these issues. All right. So now to refer to that, I like to add them to the commits. I know Sean prefers me adding them or prefers them added to the PR. I found this is really nice to be able to find back the exact commit. Wix toolset issues number. Don't need two numbers. Number 6496. 6496. There we go. That's that one. All right. Let's go ahead and commit that change. Add directory. Oh, so by the way, if I had a body, I would add a body here. So you have your title, less than 72 characters, a blank line, a paragraph, or a sentence or two or something like that. More than what you want to put in the title, and then a blank line, and then if it fixes something or closes, you put that here. And this then GitHub will pick up and say, oh, does it really? That's great. So when this gets committed into the main target branch, it automatically resolves that issue for you, which is really nice. I love automation kind of things. It's kind of like it's a satisfying, kind of like a very satisfying click at the end, except something happens. I love that. Love using this feature anytime I can. Plus, it also has the benefit of tying. This will get referenced in the issue, so you can go and jump to the exact change that made it, or changes as the case may be. So I think we're good with this commit. Now, Sean asked a very interesting question. Can we mark target dir as deprecated? And part of me wants to say that we did, but I don't trust that we did. So here, let's look at this. Yeah, so this is saying the ID target dir is illegal. So target dir must have a directory name of source dir, and it must be capitalized exactly this way in both cases. So that's that case is standard directory. And then, so this is where we get into, then if we go look at standard directory. So you'll get a warning saying, hey, you should go use the standard directory element. And then this is just going to say, is it a standard directory? Or rather, if it's not, then we'll spit out an error message saying, hey, that's an illegal attribute, and allow you to continue on. And oh my gosh, we're going to spit out all the standard directories for you. That's a lot of them. Okay. Anyway, you can get a very long error message when you get that one, but at least it's going to be thorough and correct because it's in the code, as opposed to the XSD that I have to remember to update anytime one of those standard directories changed. Fortunately, they don't change anymore. We still, or the Windows installer doesn't change them, so we don't have to worry about changing them that often. But if they do, we'll fix it. Or if I missed one, we'll fix it. Now the debate comes into, if it is not a standard directory, clearly that's an error. If it is a standard directory and it is a standard directory target dir, should we mark it deprecated? So target dir is a funny directory in the Windows installer. It is initialized to the largest drive on the computer, which catches people off guard sometimes. It's not recommended to be used except in merge modules. In merge modules, it definitely should be used if you want to redirect the components in that. So what happens during that merge element, if we, as we saw, the whatever merge element ended up in whatever directory was the parent of that merge element, would cause all the content in the merge module's target directory to be redirected underneath that, the directory that you authored. So you essentially can take the content of a merge modules that is using target dir and put it under the correct under the directory of your choosing in the merge statement. So we'd have to allow target dir to appear in merge modules, or name it. We could always kind of cheat and name it our own thing, or don't specify it. I guess that's the other thing. So that's the other thing. You can always define a directory at the top of the tree without any parents, and by default that will pick up target dir now. I'm saying that. That's what it's supposed to do. Let's see if that's true. So we're going to go and pop out all the references to directory element. And yeah, I think that's done in the back end. We have to go dig into the back end. So it's not a trivial thing to mark target dir as deprecated unless we want to say that you don't ever write target dir by hand. Instead, you don't specify, or you make it your root. Without any other root, that root is target dir. That would probably be the way we would go if we wanted to do that. So either as it is now, specify target dir, or don't allow you to specify target dir and just say the way to get target dir is to not specify a parent of your own folder, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's better or not. But this has been a full 90. It's been an hour and a half. We've been here for having good times, making a little bit of changes, had a small shift. We added another issue to triage for next week. Will be interesting. Sean, if you want, go ahead and drop a message. If you think you want to talk about target dir as the default without having to specify it, go ahead and drop a comment. If so, I'll open an issue and we'll talk about that at triage and see if that's a good thing to do. Otherwise, right now this weekly thing's kind of working, so we're going to see if that keeps rolling. I'm not sure Wednesdays is the day yet, but it's been working out so far. We'll go well, hopefully see you again next week. This has been fun. We're making progress through our documentation. I'm going to have to, at some point, create a list of all of the elements and start checking them off when I get serious. Now that I know this is working, we might just do that. So anyway, you guys have a good time. Until next time, stay cool. Bye.